Hello friends, my name is Saurabh Desai and I'm a wildlife and nature photographer based in Surat, Gujarat. I've been doing photography from last 2 decades and I've been visiting a lot of places in and around India to find some elusive animals to capture in their natural habitat, and my basic genre is to capture wild and natural elements in a form of fine art manner. I started my journey from 2000, from 1998, and I've been doing photography since then. So today I'll talk about one of my journeys where I searched for world's most elusive cat, which is snow leopard. So I'll directly take you to the presentation. So snow leopard is considered as one of the most elusive cat, and a lot of people also call it the gray ghost. So in 2017, I decided to capture the snow leopard into the natural habitat in Himalayas. And I started searching different parts of Himalayas from 2017. But I was not lucky enough to get good photographs of snow leopard in 2017 and 2018. But 2019 was the year that has changed my perspective towards snow leopard expeditions and this most elusive cat on this earth. Because during 2017 and 2018, all I could capture was this dummy snow leopard, which was used by one of my drivers in the car hanging. But I was very keen to extend my idea of capturing snow leopard in fine art manner into their natural habitat. So in 2019, I decided to visit Spiti Valley in the peak winter of Himalayas, where the temperature can be between -25 to -35 at night, and during day it's -15 to -25. So I started my journey to get the snow leopard expedition was from Chandigarh. And from Chandigarh, we entered the most difficult part of Indian terrain, which is Himachal. And as we were heading to our journey, we head back to the heights which is above around 6,000 to 8,000 feet. After 6,000 to 8,000 feet in Himalayas, you will start, you have to have a lot of obstacles like slippery roads and a lot of snow on the road. Sometimes you have to face avalanche and roadblocks and etc. But after 2 days journey, 2.5 days journey from Chandigarh, we reached a place called Tabo. Tabo is an exclusive place in Spiti Valley, where reaching to this place in winter is really very, very difficult. And from here, we shifted our luggages from big vehicles to the smaller vehicle, which can take us to the most remote part of Himalayas during the winter. So this is how we shifted our luggage, and we started our journey from Tabo to Kibber, which is one of the highest villages on this earth. And the height and the altitude of this village, Kibber, is 14,500 feet. And almost after 3.5 day journey into the most extreme parts of Himalayas, we could reach to a beautiful place on the banks of river Spiti. As you can see the beautiful place here, which is Spiti River. We could reach the Kibber village. But the roads to this place in winter were just beyond our imagination. The climatic conditions were beyond our imagination, and everything that we were expecting were much more difficult than we had in our mind. So that 70 kilometers, we could complete those 70 kilometers probably in 6 to 7 hours. And from 8,000 to 9,000 altitude, we climbed up to 14,500 altitude, and we reached the Kibber village. When we reached, it was almost like night, and the visibility was almost zero. And one of our homestay guide came to receive us outside the village, and after 4 days from Chandigarh, we could reach world's highest village, which is Kibber village, in search of snow leopard. When we reached to this place, the temperature was -25 degrees, and we were extremely cold and quite afraid of these kind of climatic conditions. But next day morning, when we woke up, the scenario in front of us was just mind-blowing. The whole village was covered with snowpack, and the snowpack mountains and village. I mean, it was beyond our imagination. It was completely white. It was almost 4 to 5 feet snow was there in the village itself. All the vehicles got stuck and nothing was visible. But that was the first day, which we call an acclimatization day. So during acclimatization day, we generally do not go out and we do not put ourselves under stress, because we have to get acclimatized for at least 1.5 days to get used to with the low oxygen and thin air conditions. So at 14,500 feet, the oxygen level is almost less than 50%, and the air is really very thin, and it is really very difficult to walk in such climatic conditions. But after 2 days, we started going away from the village in search of snow leopard. All our guides were having the walkie-talkies, and they were actually going into different directions. So if somebody gets to know about any hint of the presence of snow leopard, we can get in touch with each other. So after third day, we started heading away from the Kibar village. And as you can see here, the Chicham village, which is another village near the Kibar, was there. And we were just climbing away from 14,500 feet to 16,500 feet altitude. And all our lungs were almost in our mouth when we were climbing to these conditions. But if anybody who wants to get into snow leopard expedition has to understand that it is very, you have to be physically very fit, because it's a very difficult climatic conditions. And if you want to be here, you have to be very well prepared physically and mentally both, that if you don't get snow leopard, you may come back empty-handed. So after 3 or 4 days, we got to know about a hint of snow leopard, because one of our guide could see the pug marks. But every time they were able to see the pug marks, the issue was that because of heavy snowfall, we were not able to track all the footprints on the snow, and we kept walking in these kind of climatic conditions. And it is really very difficult, because you have to walk almost with 20 kg on your back and in your hand, because your 600 and your full frame camera and other cameras and tripods and everything is around 20 kg, and you have to almost get to the ridge to get the closer view in another part of the valley. So this is how, after going to these places, we kept on searching and we kept on looking for the snow leopard or any movement in the snow. The temperature was almost minus 20 to 25 degrees, which was actually bone shearing temperature to us. But anyways, after 3 or 4 days, we understand that snow leopard was just, as you can see here, it was just there, because we through the binoculars, we could see some footprints and some active movements in the snow, right? And one of our guide could actually see the snow leopard, which before it get into the cave. But we were not lucky enough to get a glimpse of the snow leopard at very first sight. But one of our guide was very sure that the snow leopard was there. And we started waiting to this particular ridge from morning 7 to evening 7. From morning 7 to evening 7 into these kind of snowfall was really a tough call for most of us, because, you know, as we come from Gujarat, we is at sea level, and working at 16,000 or 14,000 feet was really getting tough for us. But by the time when the sun was there, we could actually see some beautiful birds. This is one of the birds called lammergeier. One of the largest wingspan that we have is lammergeier. So we could see lammergeier. We could see the ibex, one of the biggest sheep, wild sheep in Himalayas. And it's really very difficult to see these animals in these kind of habitats, because they live at the altitude between 14,000 feet to 20,000 feet. There's a male ibex trying to climb on the ridge, and these are the two male ibex fighting as because, you know, in between males there are alpha males and there are class 1, class 2, class 3 males, and they keep on fighting for the area they live, the area they want to rule. So this is mostly the territorial fight, and the one which loses the fight has to leave the area forever and he has to look for another area. So as you can see, the one in front has lost the fight and surrendered. Another male ibex is pushing it away from the area. So this is how we were not very sure. So we kept on looking for other small animals in Himalayas. So this is another animal called red fox. Red fox is another very rare mammal of high altitude Himalayas. And we were quite lucky enough to see this red fox while we were looking for the snow leopard. We were yet to see the snow leopard, but we were quite lucky to see these elusive mammals of high altitude Himalayas. So this is the male red fox which came out from the cave, and it was looking for the other rodents and all as a prey base for the red fox in high altitude Himalayas. So these are the images of red fox. But next day we got a call from one of our guide on walkie-talkie that he has seen the snow leopard, and the snow leopard was sitting just out, and we rushed to that place and we placed our tripods and everything. But by the time in Himalayas, the climatic condition changes very frequently. I mean, sometimes it is bright sunny day and within half an hour you will have to face a snowstorm, or you have to face a chilled wind blast and everything. But we were quite lucky that it was not very bad weather, and we could actually placed ourselves on the edge of that particular valley. And this is how we were waiting for that snow leopard to come out of the prey. But at least today we were quite sure that yes, there is a snow leopard in the valley. And we kept on looking through our binoculars and cameras, and we were quite content on that particular day, because everybody were quite sure and very positive that yes, today is a time that we were going to see the first snow leopard of our life. But our guides and our porters and all the local support system that we had from the village, Chicham and Kibber, they were very tired and they decided to take a nap. You know, this is how they take a nap in Himalayas. I mean, by the time they wake up, they are almost covered with the snow. And all of a sudden, one of us got a call that yes, there is some movement. Yes, there is a snow leopard. And we could see the first snow leopard of our life in Spiti Valley at the altitude of 14,500 feet, and the temperature was minus 25 degrees. And this male snow leopard emerged out of the cave, and it started walking on the ridge. The excitement was almost on the peak, because you know it was my third year when I was looking for the snow leopard, and after 3 years I could see the first glimpse of world's most elusive cat as snow leopard. And this male snow leopard was full with tummy, and it just started walking on the ridge, which is just there in front of us on the other side of the valley. And we were quite, and we forgot all our pains, we forgot the temperature, we forgot everything which is there in climatic condition, we forgot about the thin air and low oxygen. We started running on the other side of the ridge to chase the snow leopard. But snow leopard decided to climb down right into the valley, and it just after climbing down into the valley, it just disappeared. These are a couple of footages I could capture before it disappeared inside the valley. These are one of those very few and very rare footages of snow leopard, right? And after 3 years, this was my first ever sighting of snow leopard in Spiti Valley of Himachal Pradesh. And then we decided, okay, the leopard had gone inside the valley, and we were just taking a casual walk because we were very happy. We forgot that we were tired. We forgot that we were walking at this kind of altitude, and we decided to go to another village just to celebrate the day that we could see the snow leopard that day. But you know, every time, you know, destiny in Himalayas changes like a climate. I mean, sometimes you get most unexpected thing. And when we were walking on a bridge called Chicham Bridge, which is Asia's highest vent height bridge, one of my guide just shouted that, "Can you see the snow leopard?" And I was like, "Yes, I can see the snow leopard." And I could capture the most amazing photograph of my career, because I'm very fond of taking habitat shots, and this kind of habitat was like just beyond my imagination. And I could capture one of the first habitat shot of snow leopard, and this became a life-changing to my career as a wildlife nature photographer. And then I could capture all these images where it got up, it jumped on another ridge, and it started walking inside the Spiti River. And by the way, these pictures are one of those very rare pictures, because these are the first pictures when somebody could capture snow leopard swimming and walking into the river Spiti. And then it just came closer to us. And this is how male snow leopard mark their territory. They spray there, and then they rub their cheek and leave a particular smell for the female. And it was February and March is the what do I say? It's a mating period for snow leopards. So this male leopard was continuously spraying and marking the territory, and giving hints to the female that, yes, this is my territory, and if you are there, I'm coming for you. So these are the behavior of territory marking, and it keeps on patrolling its own territory. These snow leopards are territorial and they are always solitary, but they keep on patrolling their territory. And these are the few pictures I could able to capture from the Chicham Bridge. And this is one of my very favorite picture, where you can see a male snow leopard crossing a Spiti River. This particular picture got very famous also, and very close to my heart also. Then next day, I mean, after we left the snow leopard into the valley, it was quite dark. We came back. Next day, we again started walking towards the direction where we left the last snow leopard, which we saw a couple of days back, that male snow leopard. And it was quite tiring, because we were actually heading quite far away from the village. We were almost 8 to 10 kilometers away into the deep Himalayas from the village, and anything can go wrong into these kind of places, and you have to be very particular. You have to be very keen and very conscious about the climatic condition and the geographical conditions where you are tracking to search this snow leopard. Because sometimes you are, as this guide who is almost sitting on the edge of the cliff, you have to be very careful during these kind of expeditions. And as we could not find anything, we decided to split, and we decided to go into different directions. So one of my guide decided to go to the Badan Nala side. One of my other guide decided to descend towards the Spiti River into the Nala. And I decided to stay back from where I can see both my guides walking into two different directions. And finally, we got a call on walkie-talkie that they have seen 3 snow leopards at a time, and they were the male snow leopard. That was a female snow leopard with 2 cubs. And I just started walking to that place. But by that time, it was almost 2.5 feet snow. Every day, the snowfall was just increasing. I mean, every day at least 1.5, 2 feet snowfall was there. And as soon as I got a news that there is a snow leopard, I mean a female snow leopard with 2 cubs, I just started walking to the direction. And I could see the female snow leopard on the other side of the ridge, which was trying to go near to the cubs. So it was continuously calling for the cubs, and we assumed that cubs were just near there. Because a few guides could actually see the cubs, which I could not see because they just left before I reached to that place, because I was almost 2 kilometers away from that place. And we were just following this female snow leopard, and it's reached to the cubs. And finally, as soon as the female reached to that place, the cubs came out of the cave. The cubs which were there in the cave, which I could not see previously, they came out, and this was the most amazing moment of my life, because I was watching three snow leopard from just 80 meters of distance. And I mean, I was just out of my mind, because I was not expecting these kind of what do I say, sightings of snow leopard, where I can see snow leopard from 80-meter distance, and that to three in the frame. And today was a day when we were very, very lucky, because it was a bright sunny day, and everything was set up for a good photography day for snow leopard. And three snow leopard at a time in a frame from this close was just like a dream for a lot of wildlife photographers. And the whole sequence was just very close to my, because female wanted to go away, and cubs were quite afraid because of the presence of other photographers and guides and people out there. So they were not coming out of the cave, and female came back, and after seeing the female moving just fearlessly, the cubs came out of the cave, and they came very, very, very close to us. And this is the picture I'll probably cherish throughout my life, and I can see three adult one adult female with two fully grown cubs just in front of my eyes. Was an unforgettable sight. And everything we want is this, I mean. But I was still thriving for the images which I can present it like fine art images, because that is what I think that my genre should pick up a frame where I can really present a snow leopard in a very different manner. And as the snow leopards are called the most elusive cat, they are highly camouflaged animals when it comes to Himalayas. So we left these cubs away, and we went in the direction where we could see the male snow leopard, which we left a couple of days back. And one of my guides shouted that, "Hey, there is a snow leopard." And I was like, "Where is a snow leopard?" And he was just, of course, we were talking in Hindi, and he was saying, "Sir, it is just there in front of you." And I was like, "No, man, I don't know. I cannot see the snow leopard." And I could see a very little movement into the rocks, and the sight which I could see was just mind blowing. I mean, I could not believe my eyes that how highly these animals can get camouflaged into these kind of terrains. And this image became very, very viral on internet also. And I've got a call from so many different countries that they wanted to publish these particular images. So this image got published in more than 100 different magazines and publications as a name called Art of Camouflage, or Find the Snow Leopard. And it got very, very viral, and it became to most seen image of wildlife in 2019. So most viewed image of 2019, uh, this Art of Camouflage. I mean, and you can see that how beautifully they can camouflage themselves, and why. And this was the day I could actually understand that why these animals are called the most elusive cat of Himalayas, because the scale is very different, because the overall place, I mean, the distances we are not very used to when we see animals in other parts of India. The scale of Himalayas is very huge, and the having that sense of that scale is very, very difficult. So sometimes you cannot even imagine that whether it is 100-meter or 200-meter or half a kilometer. So you cannot have the sense of distance also when it comes to Himalayas. So here also, I was quite fond of getting these kind of images. As you can say, the snow leopard is just there. If you guys can see, here is the snow leopard. Can you see my cursor? Here is the snow leopard just in front of you. But spotting a snow leopard is really a challenge. Sometimes it is just there in front of you and it is watching you, but you cannot see them. They are highly, highly camouflaged animals. So sometimes, by this time I was very content, because I was watching snow leopard for almost 20 days, and it was a month-long expedition to this place, and I was very, very satisfied seeing these kind of sightings. But I guess this year of 2019 in Spiti Valley in Himalayas in winter, everything was falling in line for me. I was quite fortunate to see the kill of snow leopard, which is again a very, very rare kind of sighting. And this male snow leopard actually catch hold of a female ibex. Here you can see the female ibex. We were not quite fortunate to get the action photographs because it was very fast, and by the time we reached there, the snow leopard already killed the female ibex out there. And then we were fortunate to have the sighting of snow leopard for almost 5 days. Every day, this male leopard was coming near the carcasses to eat the carcasses. I mean, and every day we were getting this male snow leopard in different lights. And see, the whole experience of seeing snow leopard like this is always very special. And here you can see that these animals live in such a difficult climatic condition and geographical condition. I mean, this windy weather was really, really very difficult for people like us. But these animals, they were just sleeping in open in these kind of, you know, these kind of snowstorm, you can say, absolutely comfortable. And I could not believe that how beautifully they have molded themselves to get used to of these kind of climatic condition. And why. And I understood the name Grey Ghost of Himalayas after seeing all this. The local name is called Shin. Shin is the local name for snow leopard in Spiti Valley, which is a very Tibetan, which is close to Tibetan language. And after 22 days spending, seeing a leopard into the Himalayas, in the course of Himalayas, we decided to head back to Chandigarh, from where I can fly back to Surat. But it was quite difficult because our cars were totally covered with snow. They were not, the engines got stuck. But anyway, that's the part, that's the bits and pieces of snow leopard expedition that you have to deal with it. And after 22 days spending into this climatic condition, I came back to Chandigarh after having a 4-day long journey, and from there I flew back to Surat city. And my wildest dream of capturing snow leopard into the wild of Himalayas was finally came to a conclusion after this expedition. So thank you so much, guys, for listening to this snow leopard expedition talk. And if you want to see some most amazing videos from other expert photographers, please subscribe to this channel and get all the notifications on your channel. And keep visiting the channel to know more about the different genres of photography. Thank you. Thank you so much.